Are you thinking about coloring your hair but don't want it to fall out because of all the damage it can cause? Or maybe you've witnessed someone whose hair has turned green instead of the auburn color that they wanted. Or maybe you even experienced it yourself. Today, the Voices of Trichology will be joining me to talk about their hair color experience based on caring for hair from people who have different hair types. Welcome to the Our Black Hair Matters Lunchtime Chat. My name is Dr. Crystal Porter, and I'm a hair scientist and owner of Mane Insights, a company that conducts research and focuses on the hair needs of people of African descent. This platform is designed to elevate the Black hair care industry and empower consumers and hair professionals with education that is driven by scientific research. I am happy to be here with you today. Now, my first gray hair appeared when I was 14 years old, and it started to come in faster after I turned 40. I didn't quite know how to feel about it because you hear on one hand that you should, embrace becoming older, and then sometimes it just happens a little bit too fast and you're not ready for it, or at least I wasn't. And so I had to make a decision whether or not I was going to let it come in or if I was going to experiment with hair color. But the thing is, at the time in my early 40s, I had relaxed hair. And I loved having relaxed hair. I know the movement of going natural had already started, and I had already gone through that process, right? So I had been there, done that, decided it was just much easier for me to manage my hair when it was straighter. And so I didn't have a problem with my relaxer, but I knew I had a dilemma because with my relaxed hair and knowing my hair, I know that I have thinner strands, and I know that it's very porous and it was going to take color more readily. And I knew that the potential of damage was there. So I was a little scared. So I talked to my cosmetologist about it. And she said, "Oh, I think you'll be able to do it." But I wasn't quite convinced. So what I did was I started saving my hair strands one by one until I had a couple of bundles. And thank goodness my hairstylist was gracious enough to be very patient with me. And we tested different hair colors on my relaxed hair. And I wanted to play with the fibers and test them to see whether or not it was going to be too damaged for me to go through with the process and have that compound treatment of both relaxed hair along with the color. Now, keep in mind, I knew that I did not want to have lighter hair, meaning I didn't want it to look bleached or be outside of my natural color. And so I didn't have to worry about that much damage, but I had decided that I wanted a permanent color just because I wanted to cover the gray and I did not want to go in for retouch-ups that frequently. So I decided that I was going to get permanent color. And so after experimenting on my hair and determining what color took and also having the shade that I liked and, making sure that it wouldn't deviate from what I had in my mind as my ideal color, I went on ahead and colored my hair. Now, I didn't have a whole lot of damage in the way that it presented itself in terms of breakage. But finally, I got to the point where I was going to try going natural again. My young girls had grown out of the house and I had a little bit more time. And so I decided that I was going to continue to color my hair, but in its natural state. And so that is what I have now, even though it's growing out and you can probably see my little patch of gray. But not everyone can experiment with their own hair. And so that is why I am inviting the Voices of Trichology to join me today to lend their expertise. But before I bring them on, I would love to know who is out there with me this morning. Let me know who you are and where you're watching from. And make sure you share this broadcast because I'm sure that there are some people in your life who will benefit from the information. Let me know what your background is. If you are a practitioner and you do hair as a cosmetologist or barber, put the number 1. If you are a consumer, put the number 2. And if you are a researcher or scientist, such as myself, put in the number 3. Also, please like and share. As I said before, I'm sure other people would love this information. But if you are frustrated with the lack of information available to you when it comes to caring for your hair, and you've wasted a lot of time, resources, and money just trying to figure things out on your own, this is the place for you. And that is why we have created the Our Black Hair Matters movement. Now, I have a resource for you, and it's new from the ones that I've done in the past, and it's called Finding the Right Stylist. And you can go to links.maininsights.com/right stylist, and you should be able to see that in the ticker below. Now, speaking of right stylists, if you have a pressing concern and you need to have a conversation, our team is standing by and you'll meet them momentarily. And you can have a 15-minute complimentary consultation. And you can do that by going to links.maininsights.com/APPT. All right. So let's make sure that everyone knows, in case you're just joining, welcome to the Our Black Hair Matters Lunchtime Chat. Today's topic is all about color, and I am Dr. Crystal Porter, and it's time for the Voices of Trichology to join me so that they can give practical information about hair color. All right, let's bring them on in. All right, welcome, ladies.
Hi.
So before we jump in, I want to give some background information about everyone who is here. First of all, I will introduce Marvelette Bailey. She is a certified trichologist and known as a pillar in the beauty industry. Marvelette has over 30 years of experience backed with in-depth training, licensure, and certifications. Marvelette continued her education and training in the paramedical and science field, becoming a trichology healthcare practitioner and a biomedical research assistant. We also have Donisha Sullivan. She is also a certified trichologist, and she has over 18 years of providing hair loss prevention and restoration for men and women who suffer from alopecia or hair loss. Donisha is licensed in the states of Georgia and North Carolina as a master cosmetologist, currently owning a hair and scalp treatment center in Augusta, Georgia. She also provides non-surgical hair replacement services. And then we have Miss Dana Wilson. She is the CEO and director of Hair Cares, Inc. She is a certified trichologist, Sister Locks educator, and consultant. She's a city certified research assistant, certified cold capper, veteran, and mother of a son on the autism spectrum. She has been a hair advocate for over 22 years, and her passion for hair ignited the very moment she started her very own Sister Locks journey in the year 2000. She supports people who may suffer from hair loss and scalp disorders, and she coaches other natural practitioners and locticians through their regeneration, through hair regeneration and prevention. She operates through offering in-person and virtual trichology services, and she believes that every strand counts. All right. Thank you so much for joining again, and we are going to jump right into it. So I'd like to start off with the obvious. What are the different types of hair color options, and what are the differences between them? Anyone want to tackle that?
So you have temporary color, which it lays right on top of the hair shaft, and it lasts about 1 to 2 shampoos. It's just that it does exactly what it says. It's temporary. Then you have semi-permanent. It's no ammonia or anything, and that lasts about 4 to 12 shampoos, and it just enhances your natural color, gives you a little sheen, and blends gray. And then you have the demi-permanent that has a low-level developer, and that opens the cuticle a little bit to receive the color, but it doesn't do any lifting. And that lasts about maybe 24 shampoos, depending on how often you wash your hair. And then you have the permanent color. Permanent color is permanent, and what it does is it replaces the existing pigment with a new pigment, and it does not rinse out unless there's an issue, because the vibrancy of it can rinse out.
Okay, awesome. And so when do you recommend using one versus the other? Like, for example, I made the decision that I wanted permanent color, even though I have a dear friend who's also in cosmetology, and she would have recommended that I would have gotten a semi-permanent, but I knew that I didn't want to have it fading. Basically, I wanted it to stay. I mean, it fades even when it's permanent, but I wanted to decrease the chance of it fading.
And then it would you decrease the chance of it bleeding as well on your clothes. Mm-hmm. And also, because you're natural, the permanent is probably a better choice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome. So you just said that I was natural, and so that may have been a better choice. So what else needs to be considered before someone decides to color their hair?
So I would encourage the hair strand test to be done, also a patch test to be done to make sure that the individual is not allergic to the color or the chemicals in the color. And then also the duration of time, like you mentioned with your hair, you didn't want to have to continuously get the color added to the hair. So as Marvelette mentioned, the temporary color is just going to stain, is only going to last you a couple of shampoos because it just coats the hair, versus the permanent color, which will actually go in and deposit color into the hair. So it's good to consider, you know, what are your goals? Are you looking to cover gray? Are you looking to just tone down an existing color? Do you want to just add more shine to your natural color? If you want to change your color, do you want to go lighter? Do you want to go darker? All of those things should be considered.
Okay. And so, Dana, I want to know, because I think you and I had a conversation before that you don't color hair.
No.
But with you being a Sisterlocks educator and loctician, I'd like to know, are there things that you shy away from or you advise your clients to when it comes to hair color when you do that particular type of style?
Yes. So it really depends on the stage that the person is in their locking process. So in the beginning stages of locking, I don't recommend color at all because it changes the texture. It changes the curl pattern a lot of times. However, you have people that have to have it. Like, I mean, have to have it. I just make sure that they know that it could slow down the locking process. And then I would recommend something temporary so that it will not change that curl pattern during the beginning stages. Thereafter, once the locks are mature, they could decide to do a semi-permanent or permanent color. I would just tell them, definitely get a professional. Definitely find someone that knows what they're doing with color, because as it relates to locks, that if the person is not rinsing the color out well, it will eat at the locks, basically. So I am not the color girl, but I do love it. I do love the look.
So when you say eat at the locks, are you meaning that it makes the hair weaker?
Yes, it'll dry it out sometimes if the color is not rinsed out. That has been my experience.
So do you think the mechanics of the hair being like locked or intertwined, that you have to be very conscientious when it comes to rinsing out the color?
It's been my observation that sometimes that color is getting trapped into that interlocking. And if the professional needs to rinse out that color as best they possibly can.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Donisha, you mentioned the patch test. Can you actually elaborate a little bit on that and let us know why it's important?
Okay, sure. So the patch test is done where the color of choice is pre-mixed and applied usually behind the ear or within the wrist or within the elbow. And that is to determine if the person is allergic to any of the chemicals in the color. So a lot of times we've heard of the PPD, which is a chemical that is widely used in a lot of coloring, a lot of hair colors and dyes. And there are people who are allergic to the PPD that's in it and the hair color. And so there are other products on the market that actually, if a person is allergic to the PPD, it's an alternative, and it is called, so I can't pronounce the entire name, but I know it is called PTDS, which is the alternative. And from what the information of that I researched, it's there to replace the PPD, and 57% of the people who are normally allergic to PPD won't be allergic to the PTDS. So there is also the alternative as far as the henna. If someone is allergic to the PPD, that's an alternative to color as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
that patch test is to identify an allergic reaction.
Okay. So you named an acronym, so I just want to let the viewers know exactly what PPD is. So it stands for paraphenylene diamine is PPD. And then what you were referring to is paratoluene diamine sulfate. So that's the PTDS. So that is what it stands for.
Yeah, I had to use the acronym.
I understand. You know what? It's an art to pronouncing a lot of the chemical names, and it's once you are trained, it's a lot easier to know how to say it because each one is like a functionality, and you learn to break down all of the prefixes and suffixes. So yeah, no problem. Cool. So I'm curious in the audience, if you guys have color, I know some people don't do patch tests like they should. I mean, if I was a professional, I think it would be a potential lawsuit. And so I would always want to do it. But I'm curious, is there anyone out there who has had color but have not had a patch test? So let us know in the chat. That'd be awesome to know. So what options do people have? Well, you already said if they are allergic to PPD that they can use they can use PTDS. But is there, and you mentioned henna. So can you tell the disadvantages of using henna? Marvelette, do you have experience in that?
I don't use henna because I know that once you use henna, you can't cross with other chemicals. So I don't mess with henna at all.
Okay.
And it can be a very lengthy and messy process. A lot of times henna has to sit in the hair for an extended period of time in order for it to penetrate because it doesn't have the PPD in it that makes it deposit deeper into the hair strand. And it's plant-based. That's the other thing with henna. It is plant-based. So it is a more natural option, but it does require a lengthier process and it can be very messy. I don't do a lot or really anything with henna either in my office.
Okay. So how should one care for their hair after they've had color? Is there something special that they should be doing? Because with any type of treatment, usually the hair becomes weaker after the procedure. So is there any special care? Let's start with you, Dana, when it comes to wearing Sisterlocks.
I would definitely recommend a deep conditioner on a frequent basis. That would be my recommendation. Yeah. Okay. Because it's been my observation that the hair sometimes becomes brittle or dry. And so the hair needs to be conditioned.
Okay. Got it. Marvelette?
I agree with Dana. You have to do conditioning. Depending on the color, there are special shampoos you can use to make the color last and to not dry your hair out. Different products you should and shouldn't use. So it's when you step into the color world, it's a whole different arena. You have to basically retrain yourself to take care of your hair, or to have a professional take care of your hair.
Okay. And is that due to the fact that it may look more dry because of the color, or feel brittle? I mean, so what are the characteristics that you think people need to be aware of after they have a color treatment?
So it depends on the color. The lighter you go, the less moisture your hair has. So then you have to be concerned with the sun, the UV rays from the sun, the wind, dirt, different products with alcohol. You have to really be conscious of everything you put on your hair from that point.
So when you say moisture, you mean how it feels, basically, right?
How it feels, right. Correct.
Okay. Donisha, do you have anything to add?
I was just thinking that a lot of times we look at color by the aesthetics of how it, like you said, how it feels or how it looks, if it's shiny. Right. And if the water gets on it, if it mats and balls up, we look at the characteristics of how it feels, but we really don't think about the chemical change that happens within the hair strand. And so those bonds are broken when we apply. The bonds can be changed even applying water. So the hydrogen bonds will be changed with just water. But when you go to apply a chemical, as far as like a color, then it goes deeper into the hair and changes the stronger bonds, which are the disulfide bonds. And so when those structures are altered, then it changes the strength of the hair, or the elasticity of the hair, the structure of the hair. All of that is altered with that chemical service. And so it is a good idea to go in and support the hair by building it back up as much as you possibly can with the chemical service.
Okay. So you mentioned water, and so it reminds me of cleansing the hair. So should someone color their hair when it's freshly cleansed?
I would say no.
Okay.
In my experience, it's best to not shampoo or cleanse the hair and then color it. Well, it depends on the type of color that you're using. So if you're using a semi-permanent color or a temporary color, then yes, you can apply that after shampooing. But as with permanent color, no, you don't want to shampoo it before applying that color.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I was told that the color takes better when you don't have a lot of product on it. So I'm curious about your take on that. How do you feel about that, Marvelette?
So your hair should not be freshly washed, but it should not be really dirty either, if that makes sense. Free of a lot of product buildup. But the natural oils actually protects the hair and helps the color take better. That probably wouldn't be understandable in I want to say to a civilian, someone who's not in the industry, but it kind of makes sense to us. So the color grabs better. Most colors are actually designed to take better on hair that isn't freshly cleansed. I don't want to say dirty hair because I'm going to say hair that's not freshly cleansed, because people can confuse the two.
Okay, all right. And so, Dana, you're exempt from this particular question.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
Since you don't do hair color, so I understand. But I'm curious. So for myself, I I don't get color often enough. I mean, you can see, you know, how like it's been a while. It's been about a year. It's been maybe over a year now that I've had a touch up on my color. But how often should someone get a touch up? Now, I prefer not to have it done a lot because it's a lot of research coming out that makes me wonder how good all of these treatments are on the hair. And so I want to decrease my level of exposure. That's just me. But I know people who don't like to see any part of their roots come through. And so they are applying a lot. And so I'm just curious, your professional opinion in terms of how often do you think someone should touch up? Marvelette?
I'm going to say personal preference. If you go according to the book, it's going to tell you every 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the type of color you have. But personal preference, you can go back to a relaxer because everybody's hair doesn't grow at the same rate. So if you're doing it according to new growth, that can vary. If you're doing it according to personal preference, that can vary.
Yeah.
For me, I'm not a person to throw chemicals in people's hair often. So it just really depends on the person. Like some people don't like to see gray at all. So they do, you can even go in between. If you have a permanent color, depending on the amount of gray you have, you can go in with a demi or semi to hold off for a while. It just depends. Or just to refresh the color and blend it. So it depends on the person.
Okay. Donisha, did you want to add something?
I agree. It just depends on the person and what the goals are. As Marvelette mentioned, you know, you don't want to put permanent color on every 4 weeks. Like that would be just way too much. But you can go in and apply a semi or demi to stretch out your color, just to deposit that color on top to blend it, to keep from having to use the permanent so often. And then depending on the hair structure, is your hair strong enough to be able to withstand continuous color being added and the frequency? So I definitely would consult a professional and do a consultation and have that assessment done to see how often and what type of color, and if the hair is strong enough to withstand your request.
Yeah, so I want to schedule, and it's hard to get on scientist schedules sometimes, but there is some research that talks about the different types of hair color and how it may have some, how it could be hazardous to our health. So I have to bring on some professionals to really talk about that more in depth. But let's move on to different treatments that may or may not be compatible with a permanent color. So is there anything that you have in mind, Marvelette, in terms of what we need to be aware of?
Products that help with color?
No, that could be that is not compatible with permanent color.
First of all, if you have a relaxer, and you want a high lift color, that you shouldn't do that. Those two don't complement each other. If you have a guanidine or calcium-based relaxer, that doesn't work well with permanent color. Or if you have a perm, something with ammonium thioglycolate, I wouldn't do color with that either, because that can cause, depending on your hair structure, can cause a lot of damage as well.
Okay. That's something to compete.
It really sounds like this is getting color is very strategic. It really sounds like you need a professional. Like I would not be doing that on my own. It's too many things to consider. The kind of color, how often you color, are you allergic to the color? The financial impact of getting color, and what is going to be required after you get the color as far as maintaining it. It's just a lot of things to consider.
And medications. If you take a certain medication, that can clash with the color as well.
And if it's worth it, if you're actually experiencing some kind of hair loss or hair issue as well would need to be considered.
Mhm.
That is excellent. Yeah, there are some scalp problems that people have and they want to continue to cover their gray. I had an experience with someone who I recommended that they stop all treatments, including the color. And as soon as the hair started growing back, they wanted to put the color back in their hair. And I was not in agreement. I said, well, you may want to try it out on some inconspicuous part of the scalp. And they're like, I'm not waiting. And unfortunately, they put it back in and it was like starting from ground zero again with the problems that they had. And it's like, you have to take it one step at a time. And so, yeah, thank you for adding that because I agree. Now, I'm curious for the listeners, I want to know if anyone has had any bad experiences with hair color. Can you put that in the chat? I would love to read up on that, and then we can have the Voices of Trichology to weigh in on your comments as well. So there is a product called Olaplex, right? And I'm curious because some people love, well, most hair professionals love Olaplex. And so many people, you know, laymen who aren't in the profession don't know exactly what that is. So can someone tell us about what it is and how it works?
So Olaplex is it uses a patented bond building technology. So it repairs the hair from the inside out while you're coloring it. So it does help keep the hair structure intact. And you probably can get away with doing higher lifts of color or higher levels of color on hair that wouldn't ordinarily be able to withstand it, because it kind of repairs it while you're coloring it.
Repair.
Well,
that sounds like marketing.
It strengthens it. It strengthens it. It's not going to repair it. So when you get repairable conditioners or treatments, what it does is it fills it in and strengthens the hair. Fills in the little holes and the damage, the bonds, it fills it back in and gives the hair strength and structure. It gives the appearance of being healthier and stronger.
Okay. So what it sounds like to me is they are making claims that that it helps keep the hair more intact, because we know that when you color the hair, you are breaking bonds. But if you're able to counteract that with some chemistry that helps to keep it intact, then that is the method of trying to prevent a lot of the damage during the color process.
Correct.
Awesome. So how did you get this information? Just curious.
So I looked up the patent, and then it was a write-up on it. So I researched the product, and researched the supporting claims, to see, you know, if the product support the claims.
Okay. Awesome. Donisha, do you have any experience with Olaplex and what it does and researching it yourself?
I have. I have noticed that it does improve the hair strength and the quality of the hair after the color service. So a couple years ago, I implemented it in utilizing my permanent colors. And I have some clients that have high lift color, and I use Olaplex because it works. It works with keeping the hair strong. And it's designed to repair the bonds. And so you can actually feel the hair is stronger. It doesn't get brittle as brittle, depending again on how often the color is applied. And I like the product.
Okay. Yeah. I hear a lot of great things from hair practitioners when they say, comparatively speaking, using it and not using it, they really do feel that the hair is in better quality. So that's awesome. So I'm curious, do any of you have a story that you could share about something that has gone wrong, either after applying the color, or maybe you've had the experience yourself, because that was one of my biggest fears in coloring my hair, because I have seen some people who thought they were going to have one shade, and it wasn't just the wrong shade. I mean, it was just the wrong color. And I definitely didn't want that to happen, but still, I mean, everybody, you have to kind of make mistakes to know what to do and what not to do, right? So are any of you willing to share any experiences?
I will share my experience. So obviously I don't do color. I don't apply color. I got a recommendation from another friend of mine for a professional to color my hair. And I wanted just I don't know, just brown. I just wanted to make my color a little bit more shinier, I guess. And so the lady applied the color. I had locks at the time. The lady applied the color, and when the shampoo person was rinsing, was shampooing my hair, the guy kept saying, "Oh, this looks good. Oh, this looks good." And he said it maybe 4 times, and something just didn't sit well with me, because it was just the way he kept saying, "Oh, this looks good." I'm like, okay. When I looked in the mirror, my roots were blonde and the tips of my hair was jet black. And so she did some kind of correction action on there, some kind of toner. I don't know. I'm not that girl, right? So whatever she needed to do, I needed her to do it, because I looked crazy. At the time, I was active duty military, so I could not afford to have my hair looking like that. I was out of regulation, right? And she did some correction action. It did not work. I still look like a zebra because I had different shades everywhere. And I just remember going home, dousing my hair in moisture treatment, because I was afraid that my locks would be all over the pillow when I woke up, because of all the different services that she had to perform on my hair. So I've just been afraid after that.
So let me ask you this.
Yes.
What color were you trying to achieve?
It was just a brown color. I wasn't lifting anything. I wasn't getting anything bleached. It was just, I had some gray in there, and I just wanted it one color, one brown solid color. And I end up with a lot more than what I bargained for. I even had to go back 2 weeks later to get another service just to even out the color throughout my locks. And so I was really afraid that I was going to lose all my locks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Marvelette?
I did it to myself. When I was in went to beauty school, I went to Pivot Point, and we was on color, and we started playing with bleach and lightener. So I had a style. I had my sides and my back cut low. Asked me why did I put it on my sides and my back, but I did, and it was white, like within 3 seconds. So of course I had to go back in and put a rinse over it. It came on so fast. I was just playing, and yeah. So that was my experience. But it was for about 5 minutes because I fixed it real quick.
Wow. And Donisha?
Well, I can go back to why I started using Olaplex. I had a client that liked color, and one of those clients that just could not stand to see her gray. And we did color all the time, and this is when I was learning some different things. Well, I was practicing with the color, but as a professional, I went beyond what my parameters were. And so I colored her a little bit more frequently than I should have been coloring her, because she wanted that gray coverage. And the hair started to get brittle, and it started to break in areas. And so, she went from having one style to now we having to shape it up and cut it a little shorter because the ends were a little bit more brittle from coloring so frequently. And when I was introduced to Olaplex, I actually started utilizing that product. And the interesting thing is it extended the length of time to be able to apply her color. And so it fixed two issues. One, it extended the length of time. And then two, her hair wasn't as brittle. So she could, you know, work with the style that she wanted, a little bit more length. So that was my experience, or one of them.
Right.
So I'm curious about the length of time that it took between treatments. Why did it lengthen the time? Because I would think that the hair would still grow at the same rate. So was it that what was going on?
So she just, before utilizing the Olaplex, the color that she had would have it would get dull over a period of time, but it covered really well. So the brand that I was utilizing also played a factor in that as well. So I need to say that part. Yeah. And so even though she had some coverage, she still would want like a gloss put on, or it was we were always adding something. If it wasn't the color to change the gray, it was to give it a more of a shiny appearance with a gloss, or it was just something all the time. And so that's why the Olaplex worked really well, because it extended that so that the hair did not appear as dry or as brittle, and it was a lot stronger. And so it kind of gave us a few more weeks in between, which allowed us to not have to put the color on as often, or the gloss or whatever process we were doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for adding that. Yeah, I was curious about, your interpretation of why you didn't have to do it so often. So that's great. All right. So I want to thank people who have joined, but for those who may have just joined, I want to just reintroduce myself. My name is Dr. Crystal Porter, and I am here with the Voices of Trichology. And we are moving into a segment where we're going to talk about how to determine if you should color your hair. So this is not going to be long and drawn out. We're going to get straight to the point. But I'd like to know, with your professional opinion, what do you think is necessary for people to have in the forefront of their mind when it comes to determining whether or not they should color their hair? What's the first thing that they should do or think about? Marblette?
I knew he was going to call me.
Yes.
The wheels were still turning. Can their hair handle it? The health of their hair.
Okay. All right. And so what is the quality of hair you think they should have when you consider
healthy hair, moisturized hair that holds moisture, hair that's not shedding or damaged, hair that's not otherwise chemically treated, depending on the level of lift they want.
Okay.
Because actually, if you get a semi-permanent, that could really kind of help your hair, because it'll fill it in and give you some sheen. So it just depends on the type of color they want. Okay.
And Dana, your perspective from the locks, like I'm sure you've had people who've had color and you're like, ooh, you should not have done this. So what other things should be considered?
I think you should consider, in regards to locks, what stage you're at in the locking process. If you're in the beginning stages, you might want to hold and wait until the locks are mature. But more importantly, I think that people need to consider the financial impact of starting to color. You know, like how much do it cost? How often will you need to get it refreshed? What is the maintenance requirement for this color? Do I need to condition more often? Do I need to add moisture treatment to my hair? I think people need to really consider not only what else you're doing to your hair besides the color, and if you're going to be able to financially maintain it.
Okay. Donisha, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'd just like to add that if you're having any type of scalp condition or scalp concerns, if you're experiencing breakage or shedding, excessive thinning, any of that, I would encourage the person to refrain from using color until those concerns are properly addressed. I see a lot of people in my office that cannot get color for a period of time because of their hair condition or scalp condition. So, and they may have gotten color in the past, but at this time they just don't, the hair is just not in a good state to receive color, nor is the scalp. So I would consider that as well. If you are experiencing any type of hair loss or scalp condition, address that concern first, get the hair and scalp healthier to be able to receive color, and then proceed.
Okay. All right. So the one thing that I want to add is the reason why they're coloring, because there are mainly two reasons why people color their hair. One, we discussed them both, but the main reason people will add color is to hide their gray, and that was me. Now, the other reason is, you know, for a fashion statement, they just want something different. And so considering why you want to do it is important as well, because the type of color that you may want to get or how often you want to change it up will dictate the type of color that is needed. And so I would also add one more thing, and that is whether or not you plan on doing it yourself. Now, I don't advise it because I don't like, I respect the professional and their expertise. And so I would prefer that a professional do mine, but I know plenty of people who do it themselves.
Right.
And so that's something you have to consider. Now, let me ask you this. Is there a brand and I don't want you to name the brand, but do you think that there are brands that are higher quality than others when it comes to box colors or ones that they do at home?
I don't
you say you don't know. I see Donisha nodding.
Yes, because I am a big advocate for, if you're coloring your hair at home, you definitely, if you're going to go to the professional, if you're switching in between, please communicate that with your stylist, with your professional, because the box colors at home and the professional colors in the salon are two totally different worlds, two totally different products, two totally different process. It's just different. And you can really have a big problem when the two are mixed and there's not the right amount of time, if the hair is not strong enough to withstand the two types of chemicals. It's just a lot with that. So I encourage everybody to go to a salon, of course, because I am a professional. I support the professionals. So when it comes to at home hair color, there are a couple brands that I cannot stand, and for different reasons. They may bleed, you know, they may do horrible with coverage. They could change the texture of the hair. It's just a lot of things that happen in the coloring process that that needs to be considered. And I just say, get a professional opinion. And if you choose to do it yourself, at least you'll be more knowledgeable about what you're getting into and why, what type of color to utilize, and all of that good stuff. And the other thing is, follow the manufacturer's instructions, please and thank you. Because, you know, as with any chemical service, when you are doing it at home yourself, and, you know, some people set a timer, some do not. The manufacturers have time. It's the time that chemical is supposed to process in the hair. So follow the manufacturer's instructions, and then, you know, talk to a professional, get their opinion, and then proceed. Be informed. That's what I encourage. Just be informed.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, I'm thinking about during COVID, when everyone was on lockdown and people had to do things themselves, they could not go to a professional. So having that guidance, I would think, is critical, but that almost makes me think that people need to start just saving their hair strands like I did. If you're going to do it yourself, do a test to see, because yeah, I would be really scared to try it out myself. But thank you so much for your expertise in sharing that. So I want to know, is there anything else that you would like to add about color that we have not talked about? You think we hit on everything?
I think we covered it.
Okay. So we talked about how important it is for people to have a consultation. So I would love for each of you to share where you are and how people are to get in touch with you. So let's start with Dana.
Mm-hmm. So I am located in Hopewell, Virginia, outside of Richmond. However, to contact me, is best to email me at info@haircaresinc.com. That's info@haircares with the S, inc.com, or go to my website, which is www.haircaresinc.com.
Awesome. And Donisha?
Okay, and I can be reached at Hair and Beauty Treatment Center. The email is info@thehbtc.com, and that is info@thehb as in boy, T as in Tom, C as in cat.com. And also the website is www.thehbtc.com as well.
Awesome. And Marvelette?
I am in the Chicago, I'm in Chicago in the Beverly area. I can be reached at email at info@tricoscienceclinic.com. That's Trico, TRICHO, scienceclinic.com. Or you can visit my website at www.tricoscienceclinic.com.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining. I think it was a wealth of information. People will be able to know what they should and should not be doing and what to consider. So you guys were awesome as usual. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for those of you who joined, thank you. And if you're watching the replay, be sure to post your comments and questions, because we definitely do come back to them and read them. And if you are one of many who need help finding a vetted hair professional, you can go to links.maininsights.com/APPT. Let me put that up. Where did I put it? Right there. And you will be able to schedule a complimentary appointment with any of the team members. And so without further ado, I would like to thank you again, and always remember that our Black hair matters. And as always, take care and love your hair. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.